All right, we are recording here for our massive YouTube audience that is out there. If you haven't checked it out, the Caron Treatment YouTube channel, it is live. You can check it out 24/7. Our live stream audience, hey everybody, come on, why are you still are you sleeping in your bed? We can't have this. You're supposed to be here in chapel. But we are glad that we can live stream, and we're just thankful for everybody that's here in Chit Chat, and we can all be together to talk about today's theme, which is called constancy. I was like, how am I going to get into this? Constancy. I'm not even sure what this thing means. And then I realized, constancy has this deal, which is your loyalty, your dedication, your faithfulness to something that can't be shaken. It's unshakable. So I started thinking about sports, of course. I used to be a sportscaster, and I thought back to the day I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. Right in the middle of nowhere is basically where that is. And so in Indianapolis, you got to pick your favorite sports teams when you're a kid, right? So here, you guys are lucky if you're from around. You've got the Eagles, you've got the Sixers. I mean, you got some real quality teams. When I was growing up in Indianapolis, I had a choice. For football, there were no Indianapolis Colts. So I had to look around, and there were the St. Louis Cardinals at the time, the Chicago Bears, which everybody liked, and I didn't want that. But there was this brand new team starting off in Cincinnati called the Cincinnati Bengals. I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. The uniforms, orange and black. Oh, these are so cool. The Bengals. I'm going to win every Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals from the day they start until never. They've never won a Super Bowl. I'm 56. It's 51 years of the Cincinnati. We made it this year, but it was I was just shocked that we were even in the Super Bowl. So, that was crazy. So I messed that up. I picked the wrong team. So baseball, I decided, okay, I got to get this right. So there was a brand new team starting off in 1971 called the Texas Rangers. And I loved their uniforms. And Ted Williams was the manager. They were moving from Washington. They're the former Washington Senators. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't even know where Texas was. Yeah, I love the Texas Rangers. I totally follow them. No World Series in the history of the Texas Rangers. The NBA, I had the Indiana Pacers. I have no championships to my name. 0. So what's wrong with me? Well, there's a lot wrong with me. What's wrong with my selection? Can you see how this might work in constancy? My loyalty's good. I'm steadfast in my support for these losing teams for half a century. You can believe that. I am dedicated, loyal. I back them all the time. The problem isn't my dedication or my loyalty or how steadfast I am. The problem is what I give my steadfastness and my loyalty and my dedication to. It's what I've chosen to be what I'm connected to. And I would argue all of you here in this room that are struggling with addiction, you are one of the most loyal, dedicated, steadfast, consistent people that exist. And I say that because we hear all about how we're not. And that gets kind of old. Oh, they never show up. Oh, they're never here. Oh, you can never count on them. That's not true. It's actually the opposite. The one thing you're giving your life to can always count on you. The problem is you're giving your life to the one thing that doesn't give anything back except when you are doing it. So I totally get it. You're in a spot where you can be this loyal person that you're looking to be because you already are. There's no reason to really think about, I need to change this, I need to change that. I don't think necessarily you need to change anything except where you're giving your loyalty and your dedication to, because the word constancy is a virtue. It means something good. There's something truthful in it. So I feel like changing this kind of way that you're giving your loyalty to what you really need actually is the directional change that allows you to heal. You don't even have to make this kind of loyalty change. You just need to change what you're constant to. So, what are we going to be constant to, right? That's the problem. Like, it feels weird to sort of have all this time. Now that if we're not using or whatever, it's like, oh my gosh, now what am I going to do with my time? I've got like freedom and all of this. So I'm going to argue that on this day, I want you to be constant, to be dedicated, to be loyal to yourself, to you. Now that sounds dangerous a lot of times in active addiction because we're struggling to make decisions. We know the genetics, we know that there's a lot of medical science that tells us that when we're in active addiction, this part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex it's called, we don't use it because we can't. It's impossible to talk to the reasoning part of your brain when in active addiction. Why do people go and leave everything they've got and go try and get a job on a cruise ship? You don't have the use of the prefrontal cortex of your brain. But it comes back. It comes back quick. And a lot of you are experiencing that while here. You're sensing that you are coming back. So why is that? You know, addiction ends up kind of coming in at this angle, I like to call it, where you can feel, I believe, from talking to many of you these last 2 weeks, you feel the separation in yourself. You feel your body. I get the hallucinogenics that are totally, I cannot tell you how many people out there when it comes to using now ayahuasca, DMT, all of these, what I would call intense hallucinogenics that provide these spiritual experiences. The problem is, it's an unsustainable type of spirituality. You can get in touch with it, and I would argue it's spiritual, but at the same time, it's not what you are made of. You have to leave yourself to get into the spiritual experience. You have to leave yourself to conduct all of the addiction that you're in. And by leaving your body, you're leaving the essence and the sacredness of who you really are. So I believe creation itself is sacred. I had someone this week who came into my office, and they're very emotional. They'd just seen a bird fly by and just had tears, all these tears. And he was like, I'm kind of embarrassed. I don't even know why. I just saw a bird, and then I'm like crying. I said, do you see the beauty in that? Do you see that this is the time that your body, your sacredness, your cherished core, the inner love that is contained in you because you are part of creation, is able to express itself? Think how long it's been since you've been able to express that, especially safely. That's the problem. We aren't safe to ourselves or anyone else. So much about this path of what I would say loyalty and dedication and steadfastness is getting back to you and that sacred quality that's already in you. So many of you also told me, I don't know what to do with this higher power thing. I don't know where to find it. I'm not all about God. I've had issues. I've had people that tell me they love God, that do this crazy stuff. I don't get it. I'm never going to find it. And this is the spoiler alert, I think. You don't have to find anything. It's already found you. Because it is you. You are the sacredness of creation. You literally are love. You don't love, I would say. You don't give compassion. You are love, and you are compassion. And the first person you want to begin to really love and be compassionate with is yourself. So if we look at the biblical narrative, I mean, in all honesty, Adam and Eve in Genesis, it's the first story about addiction. I mean, if you look at it, it's like, okay, you got everything you want in the world. Now, whatever you do, don't eat from that tree. I mean, you want a more addictive story. They're like, I think I'm gonna do that. What else does addiction do to us? The one thing that they're not supposed to do, they can't stop doing. Well, why is that? You know, Adam and Eve, you know, there's always this fight. Is Adam and Eve real? You know, as if religion rides on the fact that did Adam and Eve exist or not. So I always believe there's two sides to this story. Number one, it doesn't matter if Adam and Eve existed or not. It's not a threat, I don't believe, to religion. But if they did, and you run the math, this is totally wild, and you go back, I think it's 6,400 years, is supposedly when Adam and Eve were born, which of course is impossible based on science and Big Bang Theory and all of that. But this is wild. Genetic research is now showing us that we are all related in some capacity. If you were to do the 23andMe and all of this DNA testing, if you go back in DNA testing, everyone is related to everyone within a 99.9999 percentile about 6,300 years ago. So what if Adam and Eve weren't the first people, but everybody's related to them? Because when they get kicked out of the garden in the story, they go to where people are. So there must have been people somehow, when Cain and Abel have their fight, you know, Cain gets kicked out to the rest of the people. That means there wasn't just 2 or 4 people. So at the end of the day, does it matter? Does it really matter? Is Adam and Eve a narrative about the fact that addiction from day one is going to reside in you by a divine purpose? Like, what if you were running from the one thing that you were given as a way to enter a doorway into a love for yourself that you could never express? I believe that. For me, Caron was the place that gave me life. I had to die to this idea that it's about me, for me to become who I am. You know, I get this text 3 days ago, I think it was Friday, 2 days ago. It's from my son, Jimmy, who lives in Oregon. Now, Jimmy I didn't know until he was 18. So I was a sportscaster out in Oregon and was having all sorts of relationships, and Jimmy happened. And so I did the one thing that a lot of addicts, I think, do, and that's run. I ran. I was scared. And so it wasn't until he was 18 that we did the DNA test and found out that he's my biological son. So we created a relationship, and our relationship was based on one thing pretty much, and that was drinking. We love to drink, go figure. So we'd go out. For his 21st birthday, I bought him 21 bottles of rum. What a nice guy. It's like sick, but kind of funny, but sick. It's sick. It is sick. So I got to know Jimmy, and then I got sober. And I was kind of worried. What kind of relationship are we going to have? And we began to have what I would say is the right relationship. I sort of began to be a father to him. He wasn't that close to his mom or his dad, who had adopted him when he was 1. So this summer, when Jimmy called me in August and said that he was in the hospital with COVID, I was like, what? Jimmy is 25, no, why are you in the hospital with COVID, dude? Can't be. He didn't know he had it. He had it for 10 days, and his oxygenation was 60, which is bad. So he goes to the hospital. And 10 days later, as he got worse and worse and worse, he called me with the biggest oxygen mask I'd ever seen, and he couldn't speak. I could only speak to him, and the nurse said, we're going to take him into the ICU unit, and he's going to go into an induced coma. And at that point, we hope that his body, because he's young enough, will be able to fight it off. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. This can't be. So I was like, dude, I don't know what to say, man. I'm there for you. This is awful. And so in that ICU unit, Jimmy went flatline twice. He died twice, and they revived him to the point where 72 hours later, they walked in, he actually had ripped all the tubes out of him. He's got this tube all the way down in his stomach. I don't know. He came to, and he survived. He died and came back to life. And the craziest thing, you know what he said to me? He's like, you were the only one there for me. I was like, what? So no one else was here. I could count on you, the guy who left him. Can you see how when you make a change in your life, the past is the past? The present is what matters, and the future is what will be changed, because your presence in recovery heals and changes the world. Not just the people closest to you, not just you, it literally is the world. So when he texted me on Friday, he said, I got COVID again. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. How do you get this again? But then he texted me this morning and said, I feel better. I don't think this is going to be like last time. He has all this lung scarring. They told him, you should not get COVID again. But there I was, the first person he texted. If I'm not in sobriety, and if I don't tell him the truth, when we met, he was like, what happened? Where did you go? I said, I just left. I just left. I did try and come back and make it work with his mom. It didn't work. And he's like, I always respected that you told me the truth. And I thought, this story doesn't make me look good. The story makes me look bad. But at the end of the day, the goodness comes from my constancy, from my dependability, from my real steadfast, loyal dedication, not just to him, not just to recovery, but to the spiritual essence of who I am. So that's what I want you to really feel while you're here at Caron, because this is something experiential. I can talk about it all day, but this relationship that you have to yourself, only you can experience it. And I would argue the drugs and the alcohol give you a chance to experience it in a way that makes it better. That's why you're doing it. They say alcohol isn't the problem, alcohol is the solution to the problem. Because you're getting a taste of what life is really like, but it's never quite that. It's just not quite there. Let me tell you, what you're longing for, I believe, occurs in recovery. when you take a deep dive totally into the spirituality of who you are and the sacredness of God's creation within you, you are the higher power. It is within you. There is nothing. You admitted that you were powerless over alcohol and your lives have become unmanageable. You only admit that because you're pointing to the wrong thing to be loyal to. You're not bad. What does unconditional love mean? It means love without conditions. When my son does something that I can't even wrap my head around, I love him more. I don't love him less. Now he needs me. So I come. I can say, dude, I don't know what you're doing, but I know that I did it myself. So your journey is your journey, and it is beautiful. Nobody wants to hear about my success stories, I can tell you that. Everyone wants to hear about how I botched things up to get to a point where I decided that I was going to change the direction and change what I was giving my loyalty and my dedication to. So I would really hope for you today to ask yourself, what am I dedicated to? Where are my loyalties? What is it? Who is it that I hold on to and I treasure and I love with my entire mind and body and heart and soul? If that isn't you, then I would hope today, by listening to the music and by really being present with yourself, you can say, as you leave here, that I'm going to be constant to myself. Because the relationship you have with you, as you go forward, will be the most beautiful thing that occurs, because I believe in your sacredness, in your embodiment of creation, in your soul. You are the higher power. And you don't have to do anything at that point. You just be, and in your being, it happens to heal you and your loved ones and the rest of the world. Amen.